So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'm the Director of Programs with NAMI North Carolina. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, North Carolina. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations and building communities on the topic of mental health. I'll be your host for the evening. I'm glad you're here with us. Our guest this evening is Victor Garcia. He was born in Mexico City and currently lives in Cary, North Carolina. The story of how he got from there to here is full of twists and turns, and he'll be sharing some of them with us tonight. Victor and I belong to the same hiking group and literally met on the trails. We became friends, and I grew to appreciate his unique story, his unique insights, and I'm excited to have him here to share with us tonight. So before we start that conversation, as usual, the first part of our show will be a discussion with our guest, followed by our exciting video of the week, and then we'll spend time answering your questions in the virtual studio audience. So again, I'm glad you're here. At this point of the evening, we take a moment to thank our sponsors, the illustrious North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services. We are funded in part through DHHS, through the Federal Community Mental Health Services Block Grant Fund. As always, we appreciate their guidance and their support. Moving right along, Thursdays with NAMI is recorded. So if you have a friend who couldn't make it, couldn't be here with us tonight, please let them know it is never too late. So you can find us on our YouTube channel, and within a week or so, we'll have the video up. And please let your friends know it is never too late to catch a Thursdays with NAMI. Now, Victor is here in our studio tonight, which is the NAMI North Carolina office. Victor, I'm hearing an echo. If that's distracting to you, you can get up and close the door behind you. If it's not, don't worry at all about it. So just wanted to cover that base. Now, without any further ado, Victor Garcia is an American who overcame a lot to get here and become a citizen. He's a truck driver for an employee-owned company today. In addition, he's a father to one son who lives in Johnston County. He's a storyteller and a darn good cook. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here with you.
All right. Okay. Just noticing a note from our awesome tech intern, Eddie, that there was an echo on my audio, but now it's okay. So I'm glad we're doing well on that front. Victor, feel free to speak up. I had a little trouble hearing you before, but please tell us about yourself. Tell us your story in a nutshell.
Well, my name is Victor Garcia. I'm born and raised in Mexico City. Part of a large family. We were 7 kids in total. My mom, Refugio Gonzalez, and my dad, Pablo Garcia. And like I say, we were, a large family in a small place. I remember sleeping like 5 kids to one room, so we used to be like in bunk beds, like 2 per bed. And so it was like a typical growing up in a Mexico, household, Mexican household. And third world country, we were, poor, difficulties with money. My mom used to work a lot. That's what I can remember. She would go and work as a cook, and then she would come back and wash all the people's clothes and, to support our family. I forever grateful to my mom. She literally raised our family, so that was one of the things that make you, as you grow older, makes you think that you want a little better so you can help your mother. That was one of the incentives for me to actually come here, eventually make a little bit of money, and then I could help my mom financially. So, growing up, it was it was a happy childhood, but very limited as far as, not a lot of food around. But in reality, it was a good household. My mom, loved us a lot, and I love all my family, my brothers and sisters, and so it was a loving family, but very limited as far as resources. And then about when I was in my 20s, early 20s, I decided to come to United States so I could better my situation, financially. And in reality, it's not an uncommon thing for people to start thinking about that, when you're a teenager to come to United States, because I mean, a lot of your friends or your family, they do that. So it's not an uncommon thing to start thinking about that. So I decided to come here when I was, like I say, my early 20s, cross the border, which it was a really difficult thing because it took us about, it was my friend and I, we decided to come, and it took us about 3 months for the journey from Mexico City to Connecticut, where, ultimately, and I ended up in Connecticut, in Hartford, Connecticut. But it took us about 3 months and a couple tries over the border, and we were caught, and then we were sent back, and we ran out of money, and it was a kind of very difficult time. So sometimes I don't think that people realize, how difficult it is. I mean, people seem to think like, it's not that bad, but really, I mean, it's sometimes it becomes to a thing of life and death. I mean, a lot of people die, on the trying over there. They get lost in the desert, and they drown crossing the river. They get mugged by people over there that they know. They prey on people who are going through that, in that area, because they know that we are easy prey. Eventually we got robbed a couple times. So all those setbacks, and like I say, I mean, there are people who die, and they don't make it. And I remember in one of the occasions when I was there, they found like 8 people who they have died because they ran out of water, out of food. They get lost, and then they can't find their way out. So the next thing they die of hypothermia at nighttime. So it was difficult. It was difficult, and I definitely thank God to come here, and eventually made it to Connecticut, where I started getting a job and kind of getting into life as
Right.
I knew it later on.
So tell me, where did you cross the border?
Well, the first time, actually, I crossed the border a couple times, but the first time it was Reynosa. Is right in the Mexican side, and the American side is McAllen,
Texas, right?
Texas. McAllen, Texas. So you have to cross the Rio Grande, and that's hence when they call you wetback, because you usually get wet when you cross the river. And
Is that where that came from? I had no idea. I thought it was from working hard in the fields and having sweat. But
well, I mean, I'm not really sure if that's one of the reasons why, but in Mexico the term is mojado, which is wet. So when you cross the river, you're eres mojado, meaning you are a wet person, So
wow.
So yeah, you cross the river, and then after you cross the river, there is a couple more checkpoints. So you got to go around the desert and walk around, and sometimes it takes you days to walk,
Right. And
around those checkpoints.
right. And so That does sound very arduous. And you mentioned, there are gangs of people who take advantage of the crossers, that they know you're stuck there and you're vulnerable. It's not like you can call for help. And on one of those occasions, your shoes were taken. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So as you're walking through the desert, I mean, right after you cross the river, they come out of the bushes, and then they have knives and guns, and they take everything you have,
Wow.
even your shoes.
Wow.
And then, I mean, you are out of luck. I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't do anything. So they know that you come from a faraway place, and this is not only with Mexican people, but there are people coming from Central America, which is South America and stuff like that, they have even harder.
Sure.
But it's like they know it. It's like expected at some point.
Sure. And so then you're walking the rest of the way with no shoes in the desert.
Yeah, yeah. So you have to kind of adapt to whatever your circumstances are, and you know, like I say, I'm grateful that we made it. But it was like I say, we crossed the first time, we got robbed, then eventually we got caught and we were kicked, sent back. So we tried for the second time, and the second time we crossed, we got robbed again to the point where they take everything you have, you know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's you have to have determination if you want to make it here.
And so talk about where that determination came from. I know that your father had gone to Hartford, Connecticut, so you had a kind of a home base there, someone to help you out. What else made it worth that very difficult journey?
I think that like most people, I think that one of the main drivers is to better your financial, your life, you know, to live a little better, your lifestyle. You are like, I don't know, 10 times better over here. Because
Sure.
even if you live in an apartment over here, I mean, imagine some people who come from Mexico, they live in a room with dirt floor and, corrugated, uh, you know, ceiling, and they don't have electricity and no running water in their house. So they come here to an apartment with carpet, electricity, air conditioner. It's like a
Heaven.
palace.
Got it.
So that is one of the main drivers. I think your lifestyle, the things that you can accomplish here versus being there. I mean, there are many professional people in Mexico who they can't afford to buy a car. I mean, they're accountants and lawyers, and they work and work and work, and they will never make enough money to live as comfortable as you can, live here.
Okay.
So I think that that's one of the main drivers.
Sure.
Plus, I think also a lot of the cultural things, like when you're in Mexico, you see movies and listen to music and TV shows and all that stuff. So as you're seeing these things, you kind of grow curious about it, and then you start, you kind of your desire to come here and experience those things.
Absolutely. And if I put myself in your shoes as a young person, I could definitely see myself doing that, just pursuing that dream. Absolutely.
And also, I think that a lot of people, you see, like a lot of people, they have the conception here that they say, well, Mexicans, they come and they take our jobs, but in reality, like think about if somebody has a family of, you know, 5 or 6 kids, and they can't afford to feed them, they are gonna try to do whatever they can do to come over here and work so they can do a little better and being able to feed your kids. So it's
Right.
out of necessity. A lot of it is, I think it is.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know I don't want to embarrass you, but you are one of those people who's very generous. Every time I talk to you, you're helping your brother, you're helping your mom, or you're helping someone. And maybe it's someone here, so one of your coworkers here. So you are definitely someone who lifts other people up, and I admire that about you.
Thank
So,
you. I mean, I think it's part of, you know, being grateful about. You see, the thing is, as of right now, I feel grateful for the situation that I'm in. You
mhm,
know, I mean, I have a job, I have a place to live, I have a couple cars, so I live uh, a lifestyle that I would never been able to achieve in Mexico, or as you know, as it is right now. You can go on vacation a couple times a year, so that's a pretty good life. You know, I mean, I work every day, but other than that, I live comfortable,
mhm.
and I'm grateful, and I try to give back to people when I can. You know.
Right. Well, that's definitely that squares with what I have observed. So tell me, you're really good at telling stories, whether it's, how you entertained yourself as a kid, playing with rocks, um, or different situations you found yourself in. You've been in situations in Mexico City as a boy where you had to fight. And my impression is that you've experienced more violence than the average bear, at least, folks that I know. What was that about? Tell me about that.
Well, I think that a lot of that is a cultural thing. You know, I mean, when you grow up in your neighborhood, everybody's outside. Like you have your circle of friends, and everybody hangs out. I remember, and like I say, this is probably gonna sound crazy to some people, but culturally, we're a little different in that sense because I remember that all the kids they make us fight. You know what I mean? Like
Older kids did.
all the kids, they will be like, "Hey, you got to fight this other kid," and then you have to do it. You know, I mean, it was like you have to kind of assert your ground. You know, it's like a thing where you have to do it, and then if you don't do it, they are gonna beat you up, the older kids. You know, because your circle of friends from this block of the street or this street, find another group over there, and then they start, so you have to fight somebody, and that
Hmm.
was that was a common thing for us, and fighting is like sort of like a normal thing for
Hmm.
us, getting beat
Right.
up. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and that's the culture, I think, and even sometimes like the adult, like your mom, or like some parents, usually the dad is like, if you come in crying at your house and you say like, oh my God, somebody beat me up, and say, let's go, you gotta go and fight him now. And if he beat you up, when you come back, I'll beat you up again. So
Jeez.
I mean that's kind of crazy, but I think that's, I don't know, kind of the macho thing to do, where you gotta fight and you gotta defend yourself. And I remember clearly, I mean, fighting since I was like in first grade,
Hmm.
and through the years, and it's just I think that it's expected when you live in a you know kind of a rough neighborhood where I
Yeah.
used to live. You know,
Part of the culture in Mexico City where you were.
yeah,
Sure.
I think so. Yeah, I used
Yeah.
to live in well, the place where I live, it was a like a complex of buildings, like a housing authority kind of thing.
Okay.
So it was a rough neighborhood. It was
Got
one of
it.
those where not everybody could go if you don't know anybody there. You know what I mean? Eh, and it's more like they'll rob you if they know that
Yeah.
you're not from around there. So it's a place that you don't want to be around there when it's dark.
I think they would call that projects here. Does that
The
sound right?
projects, yeah, yeah.
Got it.
Like I grew up in the projects, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And you come through that era of your life and you're very mellow person now, you negotiate with words instead of that old style, but definitely that's something that you came through. And I want to be transparent. As I was preparing the questions and you and I talked about what we would talk about tonight, I had these questions for you like, well, did you feel safe? And how did you overcome that? How did that impact your emotional development? And you were very straightforward. You were just like, well, I did what I needed to do and then I moved on.
Yeah.
And that's your style. You're a survivor and you moved forward. Wasn't something that you needed to introspect on a lot.
Yeah, I think that you kind of get used to it. You got to, you know, and also I have to say that when I was growing up, I got out of my house sort of at the early age. I was out of my house when I was like 14, 15. I would leave my house and I would go around and live in the streets for, months at a time. So that kind of makes you a little bit of, you know, tough,
Independent.
I guess a little bit of thicker skin and,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit. You're in Connecticut and you're working, you're doing pretty well, getting established. And a lot of young people party, I certainly did. I've been open on this show about my involvement with AA and how that helped me get on track when my drinking was out of control. So lots of folks experiment with drugs or alcohol for fun, and then sometimes it turns into an addiction. What did that look like for you?
well, actually, yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of, I don't know if I have to say I would regret the most, because so how I got into that, it was that, I started smoking a little bit of, pot, and then I think that kind of starts escalating. You start increasing your use, and then drinking, and I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say the wrong crowd, but I started hanging out with some friends. And the next thing you know, you graduate from a little bit of pot to smoking like most days and every day, and then alcohol, and it takes kind of a hold of you, and then you transition to harder stuff, like more chemical stuff like cocaine. And so, I mean, in my case, I think it was kind of, I didn't even notice it. It was gradually getting into um, more and more frequent use. And I remember at one point getting to the point where, I was just totally immersed into just, I couldn't think about anything else but getting high.
Hmm.
I mean, I would go to work and spend my whole paycheck in one day, uh, you know, buying drugs, and the rest of the week I'll be like really, scrapping for money and stuff. And it started getting dark. It started getting, it was fun and drinking and partying and dancing and this and that. And then after a while, within months, really, it started getting like really, really bad, where, I was getting dependent on
Mm-hmm.
substances to just kind of function during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my case.
And you were in your 20s around that time, is that right?
Yeah, I was like in my late 20s, early 30s,
Mm-hmm.
and it started being the focus of my life, really, where I couldn't think about anything else but, getting high, and
Mm-hmm.
all the money that I had, you don't even worry about food,
Mm-hmm.
So it was a I mean, at the time, I didn't think it was difficult, but now thinking back, it was a hard time. It was really bad. And the thing about that, I think, is that you don't think about it as you are committing all these things. That like I say, it was, you don't think about the damage that you're doing to yourself, to your body, and also how bad your lifestyle has become. Like you don't realize that. So
Sure. And it's a heck of a thing with addiction. We know today that a certain percentage of the population has a brain that simply reacts differently to those chemicals, where, some people can, party, experience cocaine, experience alcohol, and take it or leave it to some extent. And then another percentage has a brain where the chemicals hijack the pleasure center. So the things that motivate us to do everything, the things that give us joy, whether it's holding a child or going for a walk or working on your craft if you're an artist, those things all get crowded out by the high. They all get crowded out by the chemical, to the point where it does run your life. And they've done studies in the animal kingdom. Wallabies in Australia, they go back to the fermented fruit, and they get a little goofy, and some 8 to 11% go back again and again, even though they're sick. So we know that there's something genetic there. There's something in the brain chemistry that's different. So it became harder and harder for you to focus on things. How did it affect your housing when you were in that using phase?
well, I definitely believe that there is a something wrong with your brain when you are doing that, that type of harm to yourself. And I believe because, I mean, sometimes I was sick, like physically sick, like throwing up, and you feel horrible. You think like your head is gonna explode, and you're dizzy, and you're thinking like, I will never do this again. And then
Of
the next
course.
day you're going and doing it again. And I think that like what you say, I mean, I don't know if it's valid to say this, but I think that I have a very addictive personality. I mean, it's
Mhm.
got to be something in my head because, like you say, I mean, I used to smoke cigarettes, but I used to be like a chain smoker.
Mm.
Like, some people, they say like, oh yeah, I just smoke 3 cigarettes a day, or 4 cigarettes a day. Well, I can't do that. I can't just smoke 2 cigarettes. I have to smoke one and then the other one, and then I mean there were times where I had a cigarette in the ashtray, and then I light up another one. I think it's like something in your brain, that alcohol, the same thing. I will start drinking, and you know it's not like I can just drink a little bit and then go home and sleep. You got to stay all night drinking until the next day, and sometimes it was partying for 2 3 days. So that there is definitely something wrong
Mhm.
with my personality as far as controlling the way I you know consume all those things.
Mhm.
So wait, but to your question, it started affecting my job. I end up losing my job, and eventually I lose my place to live. I couldn't pay rent, I couldn't function, and I end up, homeless. I end up, living in shelters for a while. First you started staying with a couple friends, and kind of in their couch for a day or two or three, and but then it started getting old, and so I end up like literally with no place to stay. So I stay like in an abandoned house sometimes, which now looking back is pretty sad.
Mm. Well, you've certainly come a long way. Yeah, you're definitely someone who is good at managing things, in my view, today. Um, so when you talk about how you overcame that addiction, you always talk about your son, the birth of your son, sort of helping you scale back and put a little distance between you and drugs. Uh, and then another story that actually inspired you to quit. Tell me about that.
About my son?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, so what happened is that I met my ex-wife at the time, my girlfriend. She was my girlfriend. And supposedly, I had to stop doing drugs, but I was doing it behind her back, and so she didn't know I was getting high, and I was living a lie, really, because in her mind, I was, you know, clean or whatever, but I wasn't. So that's when it comes another problem that I had to get some paperwork done for my, uh, work permit, and I got caught with a drug test, and I came out dirty, and so that became a whole, problem with her because, now the cat is out of the bag that I wasn't clean at all after all.
Mm.
So I had to, you know, that was another whole situation where she found out and, that I was lying to her. So that was a kind of big thing for her. But
Mm.
eventually we had our son. And, one time my son comes and he said, "Daddy, why are your eyes pink?" so so that kind of made me realize that I couldn't really in honesty raise a kid in those conditions.
Mm.
So if I have to say something where it was like a very crucial moment for me was when when my son was born and he was very little, and I thought that it wouldn't be fair for him
Mm.
for me to keep doing this, and so I have to kind of stop, get clean, and try to be the best father that I could to my son.
Mhm.
So I think that out of love for him, uh, I decided to change my life.
Mhm. So a lot happened in around that turning point, and those are, I want to acknowledge, classic addiction behaviors where you're trying to get clean and you tell yourself, I know I can quit drinking, I know I can do this, and you tell everyone else that, and then when you fall down, it's hard to be transparent with that, right?
Yeah.
So then you're back to lying, which it's anyways, you pulled through a lot, and at a time you were married and became a citizen. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, like I said, just going back a little bit to when I was married to my mother's to my son's mother. I kind of feel bad about that whole situation, because I mean, she was a clean woman. She's a clean woman. She never did any drugs or anything like that. And I have to say that she was a big help also. I mean, she kind of gave me a lot of incentives to get well, to help me a lot in that sense, and even though we had our differences, and obviously that's why we end up getting divorced and stuff. But in the beginning, it was good. I think she has a big part of me being, uh,
Hmm.
you know, kind of out of the woods in that sense.
Hmm.
Um,
And you were
so,
together for a long time, right? You were married for a long time.
well, we were together in total for about I'm gonna say for about 7 years.
Hmm.
We met each other. I used to work in a diner, so she came in, and I asked her for her number, and eventually we end up going out. We were together for, I don't know, for about a year and or so before we got married. So it was good. I kind of straight out my life a lot when I married her. You know, my son was born, and I mean, that my son is. I adore my son. I mean, he's
Hmm.
like my number one priority and my number one reason to do anything I have to do in here. Uh, So that was a big part of being, you know, more responsible, you know.
Mhm. All right. Well, it's I always hear about Mexican culture that family is very primary. Family is just a huge value, so that certainly squares. So, at different times in your life, you've had challenges being involved with people in your life who had different kinds of trauma or mental illness. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I have been in a couple relationships where people have been struggling with depression and, you know, all the kind of mental illness. And I it wasn't easy. I have to confess. You know, I mean, first of all, I didn't know how to react. You know, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I always wanted to help people. You know, but in one occasion, you know, I was with this person, and it was very very difficult for me to communicate because it was very violent, very like screaming all the time, and you know, and I couldn't really get to say help as much as I can. And also, I think that at the time, I didn't know much about any kind of, you know, I didn't know how to act, how to help.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, now since I met you, you know, and you know, you have kind of given me a lot of insight of about all these situations. I mean, I could probably react a little better now, you
Hmm.
know, but back then I wasn't really prepared, you know. I didn't know what to say or what to do, you know, how to kind of at least, you know, point somebody in a direction where, you know, to get help and stuff.
Hmm.
So I end up breaking up with them, and you know, I don't know, until now, I mean, some of these people that I still talk to them, you know, and I try to be as mindful as I can with, you know, all those things, that's those situations, you know, try to help as much as I can.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think you have a lot of empathy, and I give you credit for rather than hooking into a lot of difficult behavior, you're one to more walk away and then come back when things are calmer. So, also to folks in our virtual studio audience, you can look online and find a family to family class near you or a family support group near you. There are many programs offered by NAMI that will help you master the skills that can help in different situations. And it's good for folks who live with the mental health challenges too. We have a connection support group and peer-to-peer classes. Lots of good information online at naminc.org, and you can check that out. So I'll look forward to seeing some of you there. Hope to hear from you. Um, and of course, our NAMI North Carolina helpline, which Virginia just posted in the chat box, 800-451-9682. And moving right along, tell me a little bit. I know Mexican culture has a different view of mental health, maybe of addiction. How did that impact you with your efforts at getting help or your story?
Well, I think that definitely, see, one of the things is that I never thought about any of that before, like any kind of help, anything like that. And I have to say that, you know, I have learned so much since I've been in the United States, and you know, obviously, I'm still learning, you know, the language and stuff. But I remember one of my friends when I first came to the United States and I started taking classes. Um, my teacher, my English teacher,
Mm.
she told me. She said, you don't have to only learn the language, but you also have to learn to integrate to society. You have to be You have to understand, and you have to be part of it if you want to be, treated equally or as good as you can, So I have to credit her with a lot of the stuff that I know now. And then, friends like you that had explained a lot of things to me. I'm a, I'm kind of more like a wild person where, you know, because I think culturally in Mexico, we are not sensitive about many of this. And I think it's a cultural thing. We're not sensitive about these problems, A lot of people, they think that like they dismiss your if you're sad or something, they say, "Oh, come on, get over it." You know what I mean? So
Mm.
I had those conceptions. I have those ideas before, and as I meet people here, and like I said, like you, I have become more aware and more sensitive about those things. And I would definitely say now, if you ever feel like you have some kind of difficulties and stuff, there is help. There is help, like tons of help. You just have to know where to look. And if you feel bad or blue or sad or anything like that, or you have any kind of negative thoughts, reach out and I mean, there's awesome people like you and your group, and that they are going to help you. And I believe that in general, and uh, people are good. People want to help you. I mean, there is bad people around, but I think in general, there are people who they you'll find somebody who is gonna help you,
Mhm.
and get out of the funk, or if they don't know, they can direct you to somebody who might be able to help you.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I would say with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, people find us when they need us. I think for most people, the starting point is, why can't you get out of bed? Just get out of bed. Or, why can't you calm down? You don't have to be so upset. And then when they realize the problem, whatever is going on in their life, is beyond their scope to handle, then they're looking for NAMI. That's when they find us, and we're ready and waiting to embrace them and share that peer experience, what we call the lived experience. We're the street smarts of mental health, not the doctors and the clinicians, but we're the ones who have been there, or we have a very close loved one who's been there, and we're there managing the day to day and figuring out how can we communicate better and how can we take care of ourselves better. So let's see, I've
You know
got
what?
one. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just one thing that what you just say is true, because in my case, I wouldn't understand. And if somebody's like really, like you said, they don't want to get out of bed, you get like, I understand what's the problem. Just get up. Like, but now, after being in touch with you and all this organization, I can understand that you can't judge the things by your experience. You have to kind of put yourself in their shoes and understand that there are some people who they have challenges, and not necessarily, you know, you have to understand. You have to be more aware of those things,
Mhm.
because in the past I would say like, "Oh, come on, what is wrong with you?" And just dismiss those situations.
Yeah, and a lot of folks, it takes for them to go through something themselves. Maybe they lose a loved one. They go through some kind of situational depression, not something that's with them for life, but that it hits them hard for a while. And then they say, okay, now I understand what it's like not to be able to get out of bed. Um, yeah, absolutely. So, is there anything else that you want to say before we move on to our video of the week and the rest of our program?
No, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you guys, and I am really grateful to be here in the United States, and have overcome all these situations that I talk about. And I want to just say that if anybody has any kind of problems, just kind of reach for somebody, and help is there. Just just talk.
That's right. That's right. So definitely call the NAMI NC hotline, and that's available 8:30 to 5 on weekdays, 1-800-451-9682. There's also an email and a chat number, or I'm sorry, text number. So go ahead and reach out, and that information is all in the chat box, so you can check it out there too. All right, so now it's time for our video of the week. Before I do that, I want to give a big, enormous shout out to Virginia Rodias, our helpline manager. She has been working on the chat box tonight, taking time away from her family and her life to be with us and help out. And our fabulous intern, Eddie Simmons, excuse me, who's on tech support every week faithfully. So, and of course, thanks to Victor for spending the evening with us. Our goal is to just pull in different perspectives and meet people who have fascinating stories like he does. So thank you for sharing your story with us. And now I'm excited about this video. Victor, you're a man of many interests, and one of them is music, of course. And so we have tonight a video of the Brazilian drum band that you are in. It's called Ashante. And let's see. Okay, I love Zoom until this moment happens where I need to find a video and it doesn't pop up readily. So let me go through this again. All right, we're going to share this video this time, and I'm confident that it will come right up and sound perfect for us. Here we go. So this is Ashante. They were playing at the Bimbe Cultural Arts Festival in Durham, excuse me, last spring. And Victor is kind of located towards the back. You'll see the band comes into view shortly here. All righty. I have to say, I do love that video. Could you all see that and hear that? Okay, excellent. So now, virtual studio audience, it's time for us to take your questions, and we'll answer as many questions as you come up with. If you're newer to Zoom, you just want to click on the Q&A icon sort of towards the bottom of your screen. Oh, nice comments in the chat box. Awesome. And yes, in response to the band playing, Victor. I don't know if you could see that, but you got a few accolades there. And so yeah, go ahead and click on the Q&A icon, type your question in that box, and it will magically appear for Victor or myself to answer. And we'd love to answer your questions now. One of the questions that I always ask that we didn't get to is, Victor, what gives you hope?
I don't know, just every day going to work and, you know, have the opportunity to live another day and, you know, try to do the best you can, you know, for you and your family and your loved ones, and be as good as you can. I think that's something that I live with every day. When I get up in the morning, you know, I try to step with my right foot when I get off the bed. That's
Literally?
like my thing. I try to touch the floor with my right foot every day when I get up. And I say, thank you, God, for another day, and try to put my best effort to go to work and try to do my best as far as, you know, when I go to work, and try to treat people the best I can. So that's kind of my thing. And I hope that everybody is just good in general, you know.
Mhm. All right, so we've had our first question come through. Thank you for asking, Amy. What advice would you provide to young men who are in situations similar to what you were in?
Well, I mean, just to work, you know, go to work. If you can go to school, you know, go to school. School education is like paramount. You know, I mean, it's one of the best things you can do. At the time, you know, when I was doing bad stuff, I was going to school. I have some college, and then everything went sideways. So just focus on your education. You know, going to school is not only to get a job, because going to school, you know, opens your eyes and your mind to so many things. You know, education is like culturally things, you know, cultural things. And as far as the thing that I would do is, you know, go to school, get an education, and don't ever try to do any of the stuff that is bad for you. You know, alcohol, drugs, all that stuff. It's like a faucet. You know, once you open it,
Mm,
it's hard to close it. You know what I
mm,
mean? Because, you know, some people, like you say, some people it's easy for, but some people it's like once you open that thing, I mean, it's a whole different thing to close it, you know. So go to school, do good things, you know. That's what I would say.
yeah, it can be kind of a Pandora's box. I mean, you can't put, I guess another metaphor, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah,
Once you start down that road, it can be
yeah.
very hard to undo. Yeah. Any thoughts about handling peer pressure for folks who are at that age? They don't want to get off track, but it is hard to step
Yes.
away.
And I would say, you know, be your own person. You know, I mean, you don't have to follow and do everything that other people do. You know, and people might tell you like, oh, this guy is not cool because he's not having a drag of weed or whatever. If you don't want to do it, don't do anything that you don't feel comfortable with. You
Mm,
know, sometimes, you know, if somebody's drinking and you're 16 or whatever, you know, and they say like, oh, here, have a drink or whatever, you know, in your heart of hearts, you know that you shouldn't do it, you know,
mm,
but because people are, you're afraid that they are gonna think that you are not cool or anything like that, you
right.
just don't do it just to please everybody else. Please yourself, please your mom. Think about your family, think about your mom, you know, make your family proud, you know. I think it's don't let somebody influence your decisions.
Hmm.
You know, and it's hard when you're a kid. You know, it's hard. You know, and like I say, it happened to me. But I would say, be smart and do what is right.
Mm, yeah, I think humor can be helpful too. You
Yes.
know, I remember at one point making a comment. I thought we were too old for peer pressure. uh, I was surprised in college that people were actually pressuring me to drink. It's like I thought we would be done with this by this age, and that did kind of make people back off. So
Yeah.
yeah, is there a book or a song that has ever inspired you that really spoke to you and lifted your spirits?
Yeah. I like, you know, I remember exact specific this song. I think it's James Taylor. You got a friend. You got a
Oh,
friend.
yeah, James Taylor.
Because because I was when I was learning English with my teacher who was my friend and she told me a lot of stuff. There was an exercise that it was she will give us a paper with the words of the song, but there were some words that were missing. So then she'll play the song and you have to listen for the song, you know, for the words and write it down. And I remember you know, that was the first time I ever heard that song.
Okay.
And it was like very like it created a big impact on me because she
Mm,
was my friend and then I had this song, so every time I remember that song you know, I hear that song, I remember of those times when I was learning English and, you know, practicing and all that stuff.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that does sound like a good way to learn a language.
it was good. She was awesome. She's awesome.
Mm. Hmm. Is there anyone else who helped you along the way, helped you get used to this country or made a difference for you?
Like I say, she was like one of the first, persons that I met that, she introduced me to a lot of the cultural thing. She took me to see a play, to the movies, to dinner. She kind of coached me on how to dress and the right way to a lot of the things that I know as far as behavior. I think I got from her, you know, because she's very smart, and I absolutely love her as a friend because she was one of the most influential people that I know when I first came to this country. And also like people like you, I mean, I have learned a lot from you and to the couple of years that I met, since I know you. And yeah, I try to keep my eyes and my ears open as much as I can.
Mhm. Well, there's a lot to be inspired by. You've had a long and winding road. I want to encourage people while we have Victor here to ask any questions, put them in the Q&A box. And yeah, I know one of the things, oh, nice comment in the chat box. Thank you for sharing your beautiful and honest insights. So thank you for that, Pam. One of the things that impressed me, I had the opportunity to meet Victor's family and, how much everyone really was focused on your mother. Like all the boys were cooking for her and helping her and assisting her. Um, any suggestions on folks who maybe they're more disconnected from their family and they want to get back, kind of rebuild that bridge? Any thoughts about that?
Well, you see, I think that that's another kind of a cultural thing, that we are big into family. Like, I mean, I love my mom. My mom is you know, like I say, she raised the whole family. She just
Mm,
hard worker, hard working, very loving. Uh, and for us, the family nucleus is very important.
mm,
Everybody kind of help each other, and but that's one of the things that Hispanic people have. We are big into honoring our mom.
mm.
Like the mom is like the center of the whole family. You know.
Yeah, the center of the universe, it seemed like,
Yeah, yeah.
in a
For us,
beautiful
it
way.
is. It's because she was so cool. I mean, she was like, she still is. I mean, she's 78 years old now, and she's still like the center of our family, of whole family. Everything, you know, turns around her.
Mm,
Because she took care of us, we are taking care of her.
mhm,
Now, and my sister and my two sisters. I mean, they are like always with her, and looking out for her. So it's an important thing. So what I would say about that is that you have to honor your mom, your family, your brother, your sister. That's your family. That's who you count on them in the hard times.
mm,
Difficult times. You have to be, you know, if you're not close physically, but always get in touch with them. How are you? What are you doing? How can I help you? What do you need? If I can do it. I mean, every time I go and visit my family, it's like a really happy occasion.
mm.
So I think family is important. And I mean, after all, that's what you have, your family
At the end of the day,
at
yep.
the end of the day. So you have to love them and take care of them as much as you can and be in touch with them. Give them a call every time, every now and then, every time you got the chance.
Yeah, yeah. I think I find the older I get, the more I'm inclined to do that. And it's interesting with COVID-19. I'm the youngest of six, another big family, and both my parents have passed. And I wondered, how much will the siblings keep in touch? And we weren't doing a very good job, but COVID-19 pushed us into that. And we now do a Zoom call, if not every week, then every other week. So that's been a silver lining that I never would have expected. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, sometimes we wrap up at 8, sometimes we wrap up at 8:30. If you have another question that you'd like to type in, go ahead and do it real quick. In the meantime, I want to say thank you everyone so much for joining us this evening. Thanks, Victor, for sharing your story. You had so many interesting adventures and you have a different perspective that you bring to us tonight, and I appreciate it. Thanks, of course, to Virginia Rodias, our helpline manager on the chat box, and thanks to Eddie Simmons for always being with us for tech support. And next week, can you believe it? Not only is it November, but Veterans Day is almost upon us. Next week, we're going to be talking about veterans, interviewing folks who are working on the gap between veterans and the community. What happens when they come back from combat? What happens when they come back from being out on a campaign? And how do they reconnect at home? So that will be a really fabulous show, and I look forward to seeing everyone there. I don't see more questions, so we're going to follow the energy. This is what we do on the show. We're going to wind up. But thank you so much for joining us. In the next week, be sure to be safe, take care of yourself and the ones you loved, and have a wonderful evening. Thanks, everyone.